Hudson here, and that big bass right there behind me, this big deer, that big bass over there, and lots of others in this room were all caught by the same man. The man, the myth, the legend. My dad. I'm super excited to bring you all a new series. I've grown up with very influential people in my life that have really paved my love and passion for the sport of the outdoors. I mean, I have so many people to thank, and so many people that have truly they've shared so many stories with me, and my love and my dream of being a professional angler, and that dream I'm living now would not be what it is without these people. And I'm gonna bring y'all stories, fish stories from these people, and I couldn't think of anyone better to start this series with than my dad. My dad was very influential in just getting me into the tournament scene. I mean, look at this. Look at all these tournament trophies. Growing up, he was signing up for tournaments with me all the time, and it was some of the greatest memories I have is just spending time with him on the water. So I'm super excited to share with you all some of our greatest stories, and just to get him in front of the camera, to introduce him, and just to be able to let him share some of his stories for you all to enjoy just as much as I have and many others have. And super excited. So let's get this started. Well, here I am with my dad, Darl Hudson. Super proud to have him as my first guest to talk about fish stories. We all love fish stories. We just went to the Angler's Choice open house this past week, and we heard a bunch of fish stories, and who doesn't love a good fish story? And this man right here taught me everything I know about fishing. As I become a pro, I'm very happy that I've been able to share some of that information back to him, things I've learned on the trail and stuff. But without further ado, here's my dad.
How you doing? Glad to be here.
Super excited to get to ask him some questions that he's got some information that he's going to share with you all and give you all some great fishing stories. But we're just going to keep it simple, keep it pretty relaxed. So at the Angler's Choice open house, we talked about our biggest bass. And I remember very vividly my biggest bass, 13 pounds, 10 ounces. I caught when I was 13 years old. We went to Briary. It was much like today was. It was very bluebird, pretty day. And I remember you put me on that bass. You saw the fish before I did. You turned the boat around and you let me get that big bass. And it was life-changing as far as sparking my love for fishing. What do you remember about that day? Like, what about that day really stands out to you?
Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. Back when that all occurred, me and a friend of mine, we used to go to Briary 2 or 3 times a week because we worked 12-hour shifts. And
who's that friend?
Mac Allman.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what we would do. We would go and try to see who could catch the biggest bass. We had this kind of competition going between us all the time, and it was a lot of fun. And we had been down there, and we had found these big bass that were fixing to go on beds. And the day that you and I went was actually the day after Easter. Okay. And you were out of school, and so we went down there. I had the fish located, or I thought I did, and we went in this little cove that I usually didn't bed fish in, but we went in there and we were looking around, and most of the bed fish that I had located 2 or 3 days earlier had left. And so we looked around, and I saw fish up in some grass, tucked up in some grass, and I saw the bed in front of it. And we hadn't made a cast. We pulled up in there. I put the anchor down. I gave you my rod and reel, an all-star worm rod with a 6-inch zoom lizard on it. And the second cast you made, that fish come out of that grass and ate that lizard, and then all hell broke loose. And so we finally got to fish in the net. And my first instinct was, let's go to the store and have it weighed, because we used to go weigh them and see how much they weighed. And we went to the store and we weighed.
What was the name of that store? Because I remember that store used to have a list, like a lunker list, of all the big fish that had been caught that year.
What was the name of the store?
I can't remember the name of the store.
Anyway, we went there because they used to always take pictures and keep a running total of who had caught what.
Yeah.
And we pulled up, and I thought the fish was 12 pounds or something. And I told the guy that owned the store, I said, I think I got one in here that I want to weigh. It weighs 12 pounds. My son caught it. And he come out and looked. He said, no, that fish is bigger than that. And we weighed it, and it weighed 1310. But the funniest part of the whole story was, so we put the fish back in the live well. We'd made 2 casts. We went back to the lake to fish a little longer. And we went kind of towards the spot where you had caught the fish at. And while we were sitting there, these 2 young guys pulled up in a john boat, and we struck up a conversation with them. And one of the guys said, hey, check his fish out. And he had a fish on a stringer that was like 7 pounds or so. And he held it up, and he was like, man, this sure is a nice fish, ain't it? I said, oh man, that's one to write a book about. That's a nice fish.
Yeah, it was a good fish.
And your eyes kept getting bigger and bigger because you're like, you had one twice that big in the live well. And the guy just kept bragging about his fish, and you just kept getting more excited and more excited because you just knew you were going to you just knew you were going to pull yours out and show it off.
I remember vividly waiting for you to drop the, oh, look what we caught.
Check this one out. And I never did, and you never got to show your fish. And the 2 boys finally left thinking they had done something really special, which they had. And after they got out of range, you said, Dad, why did you not let me show that man my fish? And I said, well, son, there's some real important lessons about fishing that you just learned. One is you don't show everybody and you don't tell everybody what you know.
That's right.
And I said, if you had shown those 2 guys your fish, the next time we came to fish this spot, we wouldn't have been able to get here because of the crowd.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to keep things to yourself.
And we saw that very well with that lake because it ended up getting publicized in Bassmaster and Bassmaster catalogs and stuff like that.
A lot of fishing pressure.
And a lot of fishing pressure came after that. We started seeing people from all over the country at that lake. So yeah, that was a big deal. So your biggest bass came from the same lake?
Yes.
How big was that?
12.2.
12.2.
Yeah.
Did you catch that the same way, sight fishing?
Yes. I caught that fish probably 2 years later in a cove that I never really used to bed fish much. But I went in there looking around, and I had this big fish just flash in front of the boat. And I was like, I knew it was a big one in there. So it took me the whole day to figure out where that fish was located at. And it took me all day, and I finally caught it. It weighed 12.2.
12.2. You have 2 You have 2 mounted.
Yeah,
you caught
my
one.
first 10-pounder I mounted, and then that 12.2.
Both of them sight fishing? Or was it? I thought the first.
No, the first one was not. The first one I caught on a Carolina rig lizard. I've caught.
Was the 10-pounder the one you caught on Carolina rig lizard on the hump with me?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it was the same deal. The fish ran into. So I remember vividly the 1310. You know, me being a young whippersnapper. What I do remember is that 1310. One of the main reasons we landed that fish is that fish ran into the net.
Yeah.
And then when you caught the 10-pounder, that was much of the same thing. You fought it.
Yeah.
And the fish, when it got near the boat, it ran into the net. I do remember that.
Yeah. But
so
we've caught a lot of big fish.
So the 12.2, that's your biggest.
Yeah.
To date still?
Biggest weight-wise. I caught another one 4 or 5 years ago that was 27 inches long, but I just unhooked it and put it back. I didn't weigh it.
Yeah, because you already had one mount. Yeah.
I respect them enough to put them back now.
That's right. Now, going off on other species, do you know what your biggest smallmouth and your biggest spotted bass are?
Biggest smallmouth is 5 pounds. I've never caught a big spotted bass. And crappie, my biggest crappie that I had weighed was 2.6. But we've had some real good catches of big crappie in that lake.
So you've never caught a 3, 4, 5 pound spotted bass?
Nope.
Wow, we're gonna change that.
I'm looking forward to it. I still got some stuff to work for.
Yeah, we're gonna have to change that. Martin Villa has told me about a lake that's got a pile of them in it. So we're gonna have to change that.
In fact, I find at my age now that every year is just a brand new learning experience for me. Whereas you would think when you were young you would learn so much stuff yearly about fishing, but I found at my age every year I feel like the learning curve for me seems like it doubles every year. Even at my age.
Same here.
So makes it interesting.
I personally think that as anglers right now is the best time to get into fishing because you can learn so much just from all the outlets, the social media, the YouTube, the TV. There's so many outlets and magazines. There's so many different ways that you can learn stuff, and most of those articles are pretty true. If you have David Walker talking about flipping jigs on stumps, you can take that to a local fishery and probably catch fish doing that, and it's pretty neat. You know as well as anybody that 20, 30, 40 years ago, you just had to be in the know. You had to know that guy.
You had to figure it out yourself.
Or you had to figure it out yourself, be on the water at the right time and figure those tricks out.
Yeah.
It was a different ball game back then. Yeah. So it's actually a really cool time in the sport. Well, talking about that, so you have a lot of grandchildren.
Yes.
And you take a lot of them fishing.
Yes.
You take a lot of people fishing, not just grandchildren, but you take a lot of people fishing. So for the viewers, the people that are watching this that maybe want to get somebody into fishing or want to get into the sport or want to take somebody and just get them on fish so that they can spark that passion and that interest, what would you suggest is the best way to get somebody into the fishing sport? Like, just get them out catching fish. Like, what's your go-to?
Pan fishing for crappie and bluegills is probably a great place to start because they get plenty of action.
What kind of baits would you throw for that?
Live bait, minnows, little jigs, anything like that.
Night crawlers.
Night crawlers.
Okay.
Crickets, anything, just keep it simple to start with. And then once you find out whether or not...
Do you like bottom fishing when you're doing that, or do you like bobber fishing?
I like using a slip cork.
Slip cork.
Mostly.
That's right, because you can control the depth.
Yeah, you can control the depth. And using spinning reels typically because you can use, if the child is either left or right-handed, you can always switch them around.
Yeah.
And just use light line.
Whatever they feel more comfortable with. That makes sense.
And I also, after they get acclimated to that, I like taking kids when the bass are spawning. It's a great time to take a young angler because you can actually say, okay, there's what your target is.
You can see them.
Yeah, there's what your target is, and then you can help them work through catching that fish. And when they finally make that initial catch, it's kind of sparks, hey, this isn't accidental.
I'm proof of that. So,
this isn't an accident. There's some logic to this.
Yeah. Even that 13-10, but there's a lot of fish we caught from 6 pounds and up in between those ranges of our biggest fish that we caught sight fishing. And I agree with you that sight fishing is one of those things that you get to learn, like the way fish move and the way they react to different baits, and you get to see them chasing bluegill off. You get to learn so much, and it's all visual and it's all to that moment. So it's a great way. I agree with that.
Well, most young kids are not as great at casters as you were when you were that age because you spent so much time in it. A lot of kids don't put that much time into using a rod and reel.
Yeah, I had a passion for it. I remember being in this exact basement with the milk crate, standing on it and practicing casting. I remember that when I was a young age.
And flipping up under the coffee table and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, I used to love doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
it's all good stuff.
So going into the next question, Angler's Choice just had the open house, and that was your first open house.
Yes.
Even though you've been fishing for a long time, that was your first Angler's Choice open house where you got to meet the pros and all of that, right?
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
We got to share stories with Roland Martin. Who else? Keith Combs. Marty Stone was there. David Fritz was there. I mean, it was just a packed house. So that being your first show, what was the part you took away as like the most exciting part of it?
Well, I didn't know what to expect being my first time to go to a boat dealership and go to one of those type open houses. What I liked about it was it's not like going to a Bass Pro Shops or going to a big fishing seminar type thing where there's so many people. The nice thing about the Angler's Choice thing was it's on a smaller scale. Yeah. And you actually got to have some personal conversations.
Yeah. I
mean, we talked to Roland Martin for at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Keith Combs, we talked to him for probably 30 minutes. Just great interactions with these guys that love fishing as much as we do, and they were just great to talk to.
Yeah.
And very down to earth. Yeah.
Super huge thanks to Angler's Choice for putting that on.
Yeah.
Because that like he said, that is the best part about that is that y'all are bringing in people that we would never meet or never talk to in that kind of capacity. You're bringing them in, allowing us to have the opportunity to share intimate conversations, talk about their biggest bass. Got to hear Roland Martin talk about his stories of his biggest bass, and it's just, that was very personal, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They had a lot of vendors there also. Did you see any vendors that you really got to talk to, liked?
Some stuff that I really had been having some questions about. The tungsten, all the tungsten stuff.
Yeah.
They had a vendor for that.
Yeah, tungsten's taking
off
now.
The guy was very knowledgeable. There was a guy there that paints crankbaits that was just great to talk to.
Yeah.
Very talented. So yeah, they had some good vendors that we really spent a lot of time with too.
You got to win one of the door prizes, didn't you?
I did. I won a cooler. Yeah.
Won a cooler.
I couldn't believe how many door prizes they gave away. It was really nice.
So that's not the first time you've won a cooler.
No.
You won a Yeti one time.
We were at a Clater Lake tournament and I won a Yeti cooler. So yeah, coolers seem to be my thing
your
as far
thing.
as door prizes.
Your thing. They must know what kind of big bass you have, and they kind of give you coolers to put the big bass in there. So, 2024, what are you most excited about for 2024? What are your plans?
I kind of get into the crappie fishing, the whole crappie fishing thing. I've got 2 lakes that I crappie fish for. That's where I really like to take grandkids because they're easy targets for them. And I've been fishing with a guy that I went to high school that in the last 2 or 3 years, we just kind of met at a high school reunion and we said, hey, you fish? Yeah, we ought to get together one day. So him and I go pretty much every Saturday fishing.
Yeah, and William Page, he went with us.
It's great because we get to catch up on old times.
Yeah.
And he's as crazy about bass fishing as I am. And we actually are great fishing partners because we kind of throw different lures, which helps us kind of figure out the patterns twice as fast.
Yeah.
So we've had the last 2 years, we've had some amazing fishing trips. And I'm looking forward to even improving on all that this year. And my goal is to get him a double-digit bass. That's kind of, and we've had 2 or 3 on this year.
Yeah.
But we hadn't got them to the boat, so that's kind of what we're looking forward to doing this year.
I know exactly what you're talking about because Brandon Pritchett being my Angler's Choice team partner, that's what makes us really good is because we're constantly trying different things, and we got a lot of times different mindsets. Like if he's locked in on the offshore game, I can speak up and say, hey, let's go in that pocket and try some shallow stuff. And we kind of, our minds are kind of working together, and that really makes you a strong team. Are you going to fish some Angler's Choice this year?
Don't know about that. I would like to think I could.
What do y'all normally fish opens wise? Y'all fish that ABA, or is it not ABAs? The cat stuff, right?
No, we don't fish a lot of team stuff.
I thought y'all fished some of
We fish some of the local stuff at Bugs Island.
Oh, the local opens at Bugs Island. Yeah, okay. Those are good events. I mean, people at home, if you are looking into getting into tournament fishing, right now is as good a time as any. There is, not only with the big organizations like Bassmaster and MLF, and they have so many different feeder systems of tournaments that you can get into. There's so many in our area, specifically Central Virginia. There are so many local tournaments, Angler's Choice team tournaments. There's just so much for people to fish. If you do any internet searches for the lakes that are around you, you can find tournaments. There's tons of them, and it's a really good time to get into tournament fishing. So, fun fishing or tournament fishing? Which one's been your favorite throughout your life? I showed earlier in the opening, you've got tons of tournament trophies. You've done that for many years. But you've also obviously very successful fun fishing.
I quit the last tournament I fished seriously was one of these. A guy had talked me into fishing because I was getting out of fishing because we had 4 kids. And I always felt guilty whenever I'd go to a tournament. Yeah. So I decided it was time for me to just spend more time with the family fishing. So I got out of tournament fishing. And I actually enjoy the fun fishing. My favorite thing is teaching kids how to fish. Yeah. That's the most satisfying thing I've ever done.
And you've taught a lot of kids how to fish, including me. Yeah. And from all those kids and me, I appreciate you. Now
I'm getting some payback.
I appreciate that I'm able to show you a few things. I introduced this man to forward-facing sonar, and he's starting to take it and love it and use it, and it's a
among other things. You showed me a lot of baits in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and I would have been like, huh?
Yeah.
You can't catch fish on that.
That's one of the perks of being a professional traveling fisherman is you get to talk to a lot of people about a lot of hot baits and you get to learn a lot.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you taking this time, Dad. I really wanted to get the viewers to be able to see the stories behind what made me as an angler, and couldn't have done it without you. I love you, Pops. I appreciate it.
I love you too.